Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are having a great start to your day, a great week out there so far. Got you an update on what potentially could unfold with your weather for today, July the 20th. I'm expecting some pretty active weather today. The Ohio Valley could get impacted pretty good by a strong upper low that could swing through in southeast Canada and really provide the chance for some strong to severe storms across portions of the Ohio Valley, including Ohio. And really, that's probably going to be the most impacted state. If I had to name one state, Ohio really, I think, is going to be under the gun today. And we're also going to talk about the heat that continues to just really hit portions of the country very hard. But also, southern New England is going to be an area, just the Northeast in general, that could be very hot today. In fact, heat advisories up for that portion of the country. And the heat continues to flex pretty hard in areas of the south central U.S. where we continue to break records every single day. Another hot day expected, so we'll talk on that also. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Hit me up on social media over here, Twitter, Facebook. It's not very active. I'm not talking a whole lot. I make a few tweets a day, a few posts a day on Facebook. But when it gets really active, guys, it's a great way to tag along and to definitely follow along when things are really popping out there in the weather world. If you guys got anything that I can pray about, pray over, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. I look to continue my evening videos starting tonight, and that doesn't mean I'm going to hit every single day. It's still pretty slow, but I'm starting to see hints in the tropics that things are going to start to pick up by the time we get to the very end of the month, early August. So we'll talk on that tonight. But here we go, water vapor loop. Still got this ridge of high pressure right here. And this is just really heating up the south central U.S. A few lucky souls in areas of eastern Oklahoma, northern Arkansas, southern Missouri are seeing a little bit of shower activity this morning with a little bit of a piece of energy that's flying around the southeast edge of this ridge of high pressure. So hopefully you guys get a little bit of rain before it really heats up. But your eyes are really feasted on this. This is a strong upper low. I mean, this is very impressive on the water vapor loop right here. And this is what is going to really provide forcing for some strong to severe storms across the Ohio Valley. And then also in areas of Canada, areas east of Lake Huron, north of Lake Erie, west of Lake Ontario. This little section of Canada right here is going to get hit hard. I know I don't talk really Canada weather, but this area is going to be under the gun for the most intense severe storms, I think, today. In fact, the tornado threat is a little bit more heightened compared to areas south into Ohio, where you just lose a little bit of the kinematics needed for a big tornado threat. But I will mention there will be a tornado threat in Ohio today. There certainly will be, so we'll talk about that. But this is an impressive, strong upper low. And then the severe weather threat will shift into the northeast tomorrow. But Storm Prediction Center, here it is, a pretty large slight risk. This includes very big cities like Detroit, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, all the way down to Louisville. But I think the hardest hit areas will be really in here in Ohio. You guys will be under the gun today. I think kind of a broken line of maybe semi-discrete supercells could form, and really the more discrete these storms are, the more dangerous they could potentially be. But there will be a big severe weather threat. I'm not sure if this is going to get upgraded to an enhanced risk, but if it does, I expect this to be on the northern end of the slight risk. So we'll see how this unfolds today, but there's a marginal risk that kind of slithers down to the southwest and actually into the areas that are having intense heating today. So we're actually hoping for some storms today. Of course, you don't want the severe storms, but I know you folks, I'll let you guys speak for yourselves. I'm sure you guys would take any rain that you can get at this point, even if it just happens to come in the form of a severe thunderstorm. But a tornado risk is there, just a 2% risk. But I would not be surprised if this gets upgraded to a 5% risk here in an hour or two. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, hey, you're giving me old data, remember, they turn around and update this usually an hour and a half, 2 hours right after I make this video. So I would not be surprised if this gets upgraded to a 5% risk in here somewhere. Not this entire 2% risk, but somewhere in here. So right now, just a 2% chance of a tornado, 25 miles in any given location. There will be a damaging wind threat, a 15% risk. This includes all the areas I already mentioned that are in the slight risk. 15% risk of winds pushing 50 knots or higher. That is 55 or 60 mile per hour winds, which is damaging wind gusts. Hail threat will be there. This might get upgraded to a 15% risk, especially if it looks like this is going to evolve into more of discrete cells. But I do think we'll have some hail in some of these storms today. The National Weather Service, as far as the watches and warnings, excessive heat warnings here in the purple, very hot. Temperatures approaching over 110 degrees today in certain areas. Oklahoma City hit 111, I think, yesterday. You're waking up in areas of southwest Oklahoma, this portion of northern Texas. You're waking up to just low temperatures in the 90s. You're literally waking up where it's supposed to be in the 70s. You're waking up to temperatures in the 90s. That tells you right there how hot it truly is and how hot it's going to be today. But you got heat advisories extending almost all the way into Georgia. This is extending a little bit further east now as the ridge of high pressure has shifted a little further east. But look at these heat advisories up into southern New England, the I-95 corridor. We'll talk about how hot y'all can get a little bit later in the video, but very hot today. You know, obviously you can't compare it to the heat down here, but it's going to be very hot today for you folks who live up here, you know, compared to what y'all are used to. Very warm. The humidity is going to be high, which is really what's going to make it feel very uncomfortable. Let's talk about the storm risk. We'll look at the latest long-range HRRR model. So we're already into this morning, nothing going on. We're getting into around the noon time frame. Now we're getting into the early afternoon time frame. At this point, we're around 3 p.m. You're thinking, well, where's the storms, Mitch? Well, they're not really going to fire up until later this afternoon, even this evening, maybe even after dark. So we're getting, you know, into a little bit later, probably at this point, we're around the 7 to 8 p.m. time frame. Here it is, the storms that start to pop off here around Columbus, maybe just north, maybe just southwest of Cleveland. You remember, these are just models. It's not going to predict exactly where a storm is. And I'm really zoomed in on Ohio here because I really think this will be the hardest hit state. But really quickly, as we're getting into about 8 to 9 p.m., these storms really get going. So it's going to be right after dinner time for you folks in Ohio, Columbus, south of Cleveland, or around Cleveland, Dayton, Cincinnati, right when you're putting the kids to sleep or you're just chilling out for the night and you're kind of relaxing the rest of the evening. These storms, this might be one of the most intense. You know, they fire up very quickly. How discrete does these get? The latest long-range HRRR model doesn't really have a discrete mode, but I will tell you this isn't going to be very scattered. I think a line of storms form very quickly. They're probably going to be very intense, probably just after dinner time, maybe getting into after not the overnight hours necessarily, but as the sun is going down, they could be very intense. But then quickly, they move as you approach 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., they start to move into western areas of PA. They start to move into West Virginia. And then they kind of start to sink southeast. And they probably lose some intensity at this point. But they could be very strong. Getting into about midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. As they start to fully enter West Virginia, these storms will still probably be packing a punch. But I think the biggest tornado threat will be around dinner time and just after for Ohio today. But I think the most intense storms, the biggest tornado threat will be just north. The further north you get, you cross Lake Erie, you get into Canada, I think they have a big tornado threat. I would not be surprised if certain areas in Canada just north of Lake Erie gets a report or two of tornadoes. There's going to be a couple tornado warnings at least. But you watch today how this is going to unfold. You really do. I mean, you look at the updraft helicity swaths, which in general, you just look at this and don't see this and think, hey, oh no, this is going to be where a tornado is going to be. That's not what it means. It tells us where we have rotating updrafts. So where these storms are rotating generally. And with such a strong upper low well to the north, now it's well to the north, so you're lacking the kinematics needed. If it was closer up, really tucked into that low pressure, winds aloft, the wind patterns, basically the wind environment and the upper levels of the atmosphere will be more supportive for a tornado threat. But this is such a strong upper low. You still got wind profiles aloft, enough spin to the atmosphere. It's going to promote some spin to these storms. So that's what it's trying to tell us, that, hey, these storms are going to be spinning a little bit. But as you go a little bit more north, and this looks a little bit more intense. Maybe watch out Erie, Pennsylvania, a little bit later this evening, well after the sun goes down. I think these storms will get their most intense. Likely the timing will be maybe when the sun's starting to go down, which might be a little bit more dangerous. But let's talk about the southeast. I think it's going to be just a typical summer day. Tropical downpours down here in Florida, the Panhandle, Big Bend areas of Florida. The whole entire peninsula of Florida will be under the gun for maybe just some downpours. It's nothing that you aren't used to. I think the Carolinas today, maybe some scattered convection, maybe a strong storm or two, just like the last couple days where we've seen that. But it's going to be isolated. Trying to figure out where it's going to form is going to be very hard. But I can tell you the HRRR model really likes the Piedmont Triad of North Carolina, drifting into the upstate of South Carolina up towards Rock Hill. And then, the models today want to throw Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma a bone with some scattered showers and storms. We'll take a closer look at that here in a second. That would help cool you guys off in the most intense heating of the day. And then we're going to have some isolated severe storms up in Kentucky, but the forcing will be lacking due to the fact that you guys are well south of that upper low that's way up in Canada. So just lack of forcing in general. Hot temperatures today. Typical summertime temperatures. It'll actually be warmer in Virginia, the Delmarva area, than it is maybe the Carolinas and Georgia. 90s in Virginia, 80s and 90s for the Carolinas. But the further west you work into Alabama, Mississippi, western Tennessee, you start to inch closer to that 100-degree mark, and then it just gets unbearable in Arkansas and Oklahoma. You're going to have to deal with a little bit more humidity in Oklahoma and Arkansas today, really Arkansas, but that means you have a higher chance of maybe some showers and storms to save the day during the most intense heating of the day. The Northeast, I think you guys are going to be pretty quiet most of the day, but as you work your way into the evening hours, expect some stronger storms, maybe a severe storm or two to start to enter far western areas of New York State, starts knocking on the door of Buffalo, probably into the overnight hours, well into the late evening, and then these storms will start to enter PA. But I think most of the Northeast is pretty quiet today. But you start to get into tomorrow, it gets a little bit more rocky. But the Northeast today, very hot. I mean, Buffalo is going to get into the 90s today. New York City, well into the 90s. Boston, well into the 90s. All southern New England, well into the 90s. New Jersey, very hot. It's going to try to flirt with 100 degrees, I think, was somewhere in New Jersey today. Delaware, hot. The Delmarva in general. Washington, D.C., well into the 90s. And you're going to have some humidity. The dew points are going to be pretty tropical for this time of the year. So you're going to feel it. Heat index is probably going to get well over 100 degrees, maybe 105 in certain areas. So very uncomfortable conditions that y'all are used to. Now, I mean, it gets hot in New England this time of the year, but the heat advisory criteria is much lower compared to areas in the South, obviously, who are used to the heat. It's just a typical summer day in the South. But you're looking at the South Central U.S. Here it is. What we're going to hope for is we get some storm action in eastern Oklahoma, maybe even into northeast Texas. But I really do think you're going to have some storm action into northern Arkansas today. I think that might save you guys temporarily. And what happens is that'll form and then it'll drift south along this high pressure where the directional flow is this way. So this will drift south. So, if you're in a community or town in western Arkansas or eastern Oklahoma, there's a chance you guys will see a little bit of rain today. You can actually see this well here. So these are temperatures in the hottest parts of the day. Absolutely brutal, pretty much unbearable. Dallas, Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth, well over 100. Central Texas, Bacon, everybody in Texas, well over 100 degrees, probably 90% of the state. Oklahoma City will flirt with records today, if not hit a record. Arkansas will be brutal. It really likes the idea of southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, the Ozarks getting well over 100 degrees a day, pushing 105, 110 degrees a day. But watch what happens around 3, 4, 5 p.m. You start to get this in motion. See if I can get this in motion here. And all of a sudden, bang, you see these little weird pockets right here? That is where it's predicting convection to form. So when these showers and storms form, they pop out outflow boundaries and create rain-cooled air. So look, it just quickly drops to 70 into the 70s and 80s around 8 p.m. And that is rain-cooled air. So that's what you hope for. You hope for these showers and storms to form. And, of course, you don't want the severe damage or anything like that. But, you take some, you leave some. Upper low for the north central U.S. It's pivoting through, so it'll be much quieter. But there will be probably a storm chance in northern Michigan. But this is on the backside of low pressure, so the severe weather threat is probably lessened somewhat. But maybe a strong storm or two in northern Minnesota. But other than that, pretty quiet. But comfortable conditions, summertime conditions up in the north central U.S. Nothing too crazy. Warming up again all the way up in South Dakota and Nebraska. But in general, I mean, these are the temperatures you can expect for your state, northern Michigan, Wisconsin. Maybe a little bit of a cloud cover due to this upper low swinging through, which typically brings some cloud cover. But that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Stay safe out there. Heavily populated areas are going to be under the gun for severe weather, so y'all please stay safe out there. I'll be with you guys this evening. God bless you. Have a great Wednesday.